Is there anyone that can touch on, so this is like, this topic specifically is bringing up like a lot of emotion within me, um, because one of the things that I dealt with a lot was playing the victim role. I played the victim for very years and years and years, and I almost saw myself as a woe is me angel that like was enduring all of this stuff, and look at how strong and patient I am because of all of these things that have happened to me. And I was wondering if there's anyone on here that can speak on identity, because that's kind of what we're talking about here is, you know, how to go from being angry and mad and frustrated to like not. Because we you do want to, I did want to, you know, kind of like cocoon myself into this story of being this person who went through this, and kind of like held on to that identity for a really long time, almost to the point where anyone who knew me during the last like 2 years I was in that relationship, and then the year after I was in that relationship, the first thing that would come out of my mouth is, you know, what was going on. It was like, hello, my name is Sabrina, nice to meet you, blah. And now looking back, it's embarrassing. But I'd like to kind of touch, if there's anyone here that's comfortable, on identity and how, what that is and why we cling on to stuff like that, and how to change that, because we're hanging on to it so tight. And that's why it's tough. Is there anyone that can touch on that?
I will. Okay. I was about to talk about it, so I'm so glad that you opened that door. I think one of the first things that I do with clients when I see that they're in that space is have them make a list of the payoffs of the state that they're in. You're staying in this state because it's familiar. We as humans cling to the familiar more than we're drawn to create a better situation. That's just human nature. So let's look at all the payoffs we're getting for being the victim. We get all this love and support from our friends. And then, you can choose to stay in that state. If you're like, let's look at all these payoffs. Wow, that's a lot of payoffs. Do you want to stay there? Because look at all that you're getting. And then you let them come to the conclusion that, but no, I'm really unhappy. Oh, you're unhappy. Then why wouldn't we let this person off the hook? Because we think that we're doing it for them. But of course, it's really for us. It's like, it's not about forgiving them, condoning anything. It's because we've noticed that carrying this is dragging down our energy, our vibration. And if we can see it from their angle, if we can walk around the statue to see the different sides of the statue, if we can make them kind of, okay, they were operating from their keyhole. We all see reality through a keyhole. They're operating from their keyhole. We're operating from ours. And then feel the lightness of that and feel how much better it makes us feel. You don't have to ever tell them they're forgiven or off the hook, but when you show somebody that it's more to their benefit to look at this from a different perspective, I think that goes a long way.
Marie, I think you raised your hand.
Yeah, I was stuck in victim mode for a really long time. I would constantly have panic attacks, just stuck in that woe is me attitude. And it wasn't until somebody brought up energy and being extra sensitive, which was like 2 years after my divorce, that, what I was attracting was because of the way I was feeling. And that just like had a light bulb moment for me. And I was just like, I need to change. Like, and figure out like what the root cause was for me and why I was acting the way I was, and that it was up to me and only me. Like no one else was going to do it for me. Like I was constantly reaching out to other people to do it for me, but you can't do that. Somebody can't just change your mind for you. You have to do it yourself. It's work, and you have to do it. You have to go within. You have to change it yourself.
And one more thing. I completely agree with what Marie was saying, and I think that a lot of the time people are afraid to do the work. It's like the evil you know is safer than the evil that you don't know, even though we're in excruciating pain. But I also find that a lot of the time it goes back to some core limiting belief that we have adopted during childhood, whether it's like, some idea of, well, I'm just never going to be happy because I'm so sensitive and, people always take advantage of me and this is just the way it is. And it may not be a conscious belief, but it's somewhere in your body, in your mind. And so, and often it's layered because you have that belief, like maybe something happened when you were 5 and then something else happened when you were 7 and sort of layered onto that. So you've got years of this belief and it's become part of who you are. And so letting go of that is really scary. Like this is my identity. I don't know who I am if I'm not this person. And so when you can dig deep into that, and it doesn't have to be, it doesn't have to be like that it doesn't have to take years to realize what those beliefs are and to let them go. But I think that that's really important too, because we are, it's safety. Our brain wants us to be safe, and what we know is what's safe. That what's out there is scary, and so your brain is going to do everything it can to keep you in that same place. So the more aware you are of what you're believing and what's driving you, the easier it is to move forward. And it's not necessarily easy, but at least it allows you the possibility of moving forward and doing the work.
Mia.
I was also, yes, I was going to say, being stuck in victimhood, it is also a vehicle for acknowledgement. So that's one of the things that, you identify with and becoming a martyr. Like, look at all the things that I'm doing so that, so I can be seen, so I can be heard. I didn't fall into victimhood, but I fell into martyrdom, where I'm doing all of these things. Do you see what I'm doing? Do you see what I'm doing? Being a mom, being a this, being a that. And so I think for me, kind of parlaying what Christine is saying, is it was my vehicle for acknowledgement, for being heard, and being, gaining attention, gaining, holding space in the floor, and like, oh, here's all the things that I'm doing. But I also think victimhood, and I see this going around all the time on social media, and like, oh my God, I'm my mom and I'm so tired, my kid's like crazy. And, there's this just low energy vibration that I think a lot of females connect on this level. And it's like, they then support each other in this, life is hard, life is a struggle, call it victimhood or whatever. And it's like an identity that you kind of get stuck in. And I'm not in that space, but I see it and I recognize it. But I also think it's about, women not being, what's the word I'm trying to look for? It's like, you want to be humble, but they almost don't want to celebrate each other because, oh, let's just stay in the little waiting pool here, and let's just talk about all the bad stuff that's going on in our lives, and we can connect that way, and not say, oh, but you're amazing because of this reason. So I think, just recognizing that you don't have to stay in that space. You can support each other in a different way. It's a decision and it's a choice to move out of that. Yes, Marianne says, I agree. I have friends like that. Yeah, it's like, oh, come on, let's saddle up to the bar, so to speak, and talk about our issues and our problems. I mean, it's what we do as humans anyway. We socialize, we talk about, we try to figure out, but when does it become just kind of a pool of low energy, and when is it actual support? That's when you have to kind of look at the difference. So Sabrina, if you were in victimhood, you had people around you that were supporting that constantly in that space, and it was safe. Like Christine was saying, it is safe. It's what That's why people stay in that place, because the unknown is more uncertain and it's more work, and your brain doesn't think about that. Brain's like, oh, I can handle this. This is something that I'm used to. I know the pattern, I know the cycle, and I'm going to stick with it because I can handle it. You might not like it, but you can handle it because you've done it. So just recognizing that. Yeah, Marie.
This reminds me of the video that's going around where it's talking about an empath, and the person goes over to someone and they hold hands and their hands become black. And then they go and they hug someone who's trying to kill themselves. And then the more black comes into them. It's just like emptying their cup. Like, and then eventually it's all black and you're just in victimhood and you didn't even put yourself there. Like, it was just an energy exchange that you've just accepted as your own. And I've definitely done that. I've definitely been, where I've just given away my energy to the point that I just accepted that as my reality.
Yeah.
100%.
Yes.
All right. Oh, go ahead, Sherm.
Mine wasn't so much my identity. I think growing up was like, or in my life before was like being the good girl, like being the good mom, caring really how everybody saw me, you know, my in-laws and having that reputation. And so then by stepping, you know, getting divorced and recognizing that I was unhappy and all that was like letting that go, letting that image go, that identity go. Because I was going to be the bad guy. I was going to be seen as the bad guy by initiating the divorce and taking this other path that was in the long run better for me. But I had to come to that step off, you know, let go of that identity and come to the place where that doesn't matter. You know, I can't stay here because I care about like what everybody's going to think about me, that see me as not being good.
I just want to add something on the identity part. You know, I get to decide who I want to be. And in any situation, I get to decide that. And am I, you know, and I have relationships that are not always pleasant, and they're people that I have to deal with that sometimes it seems like it's toxic, or I can have that like, woe is me, like, well, can you even believe that they did this? And like, where do they think they're coming? You know, like this whole thing. But then I have to choose, you know, how am I going to, like, who am I, first of all, like centrally, who am I? And then how does that person respond, right? Because I'm a person of integrity. I want to be a person who's filled with joy. I want to be this person I'm who I am, regardless of what any of you guys say, or regardless of what any of my family does, or what happens to me. I choose how I'm going to respond. And I have to sometimes take a step back because I don't want to react to what somebody else does to me. And I definitely don't want to be defined by what somebody else does to me or what somebody else says about me. And, you know, for me, you know, in my faith background and going back to, you know, like Leanne said about questioning God, you know, when you're going through like the midst of something terrible that kind of rocks your identity, you know, crying out to him and saying like, who are you? Because, you know, like, you're my creator, you created me, like, you get to like call me by name, you get to define me, and who do you say I am, and how do I live that out, versus what does, you know, Sally Joe over there down the street say about my Facebook, you know, like whatever it is. Sometimes it's little and sometimes it's big, but at the end of the day, I decide who I am. And, you know, I'm a mom, but that's not the definition of me, right? And if something happened to my kids and I lost my kids, if my whole identity is I'm a mom, well, then what happens, right? And same thing like with people who've been through a divorce. If I'm a wife and then that marriage falls apart, well, then what happens? Like, but if you attach your identity to anything external, yeah, your identity is always going to be wavering because that's
Absolutely.
always going to be changing.
Absolutely. Wow, well said. All right. I am looking at Marie.
Hi guys, I am Marie Martin. I'm from West Virginia. I'm a certified Reiki master and a transformation coach. And my question is, we talked a little bit about how our parents felt. And my father didn't speak to me for a year after the divorce. he was very upset with me. It goes back to Charmin, who was talking about religion. My dad was very upset with me. He thought I was one of the worst sinners ever. I don't know, but so he was. So I just want to know, like, how did all of your parents feel, or how would you have talked to your parents about it?
I'll go.
Your turn first. Yeah.
Yeah. I was very nervous to acknowledge that that I was going to go down this path, and I was fortunate enough that I did have the support of my parents, although it was new for them. They were scared. They didn't know what was happening. They didn't really know how to guide me specifically, but they were there for me, and understanding that this decision was the right decision for me and for the future of my kids too. Not, exercising my ex in any way, but they what ended up happening was all of the thoughts that they had over, I mean, we were together almost 20 years, but married like 14. So all the things that they never shared with me along the way started to come out, of how they felt about situations, what they had experienced. And I was like, why didn't you tell me these things? Because it would have helped shape me through the process of being in the marriage. And maybe I could have changed some things and identified and addressed things. But they didn't want to put, be imposing on me. That's your marriage. That's your thing. That's what you're dealing with. And they never shared those things with me. So all of that started to come out during, this time in separation and going through the divorce. And I was really surprised because my family were very open with each other. And I was shocked at how much and how strongly they felt about things. And they never shared that in that amount of time. So, although they were supportive, it was sort of also a layer of, I didn't feel betrayed by them, but I felt alone. I was like, oh my God, I've been doing this whole thing by myself, and I have a great relationship with my family. So I was a little surprised. However, supportive, leaning in, and more supportive than I had even anticipated it being. So it did have a great outcome, but a lot of those things surfaced that I was surprised about.
Tori?
So my father was actually a pastor for most of my life. He's no longer a pastor. But like, if you know a pastor, he's always going to be a pastor. And we were in an Irish Presbyterian church growing up. So, I mean, women wore skirts and hats to church. And if your head wasn't covered, it was like a whole thing. And so my mom, ever since I can remember, she would always say, she had 6 kids, and she goes, all I can do is pray that, the word divorce is never mentioned in all my generations. Like, that was a very common phrase that she would tell other people. It was very, very well known in our house that, like, you don't get divorced. And so I came out as not a Christian when I was 20, and I didn't end up getting divorced until I was 28. So I had a long time separation from that type of mentality. And so, but I still had that in the background. And, my divorce was a long way coming. And, we would go back and forth between who was divorcing who. And, it was like, it wasn't like very, very pleasant. But, it was something that I had a long time to prepare for before, it was time. And so during that time, I did learn a lot about energy and like what you're manifesting and stuff like that. And so what I would do, every time I would worry about it, was I would just picture it going as smoothly as possible. And so when it actually did happen, my ex-husband was being really terrible, and he was saying he was going to take everything, like he was going to take me for everything and leave me with nothing. And he was divorcing me, and I had to move out. And it was like, you know, it was like a climax where it was like I had to tell my parents because I might have to move in with them. And so in that conversation, you know, I was praying about it, and I was like picturing it, you know, and when you're in that that space, it's like, okay, I'm picturing this going really well, but I'm also really scared. And so it was I called my dad, and it's like in my family, it's best just to talk to my dad and let him talk to my mom. And so I called my dad, and his reaction was, ouch, oh baby, I'm so sorry, like that. And it was like everything just relaxed in me. It was like there was no judgment, there was no hate, you know, anything like that. And he told my mom, which was really good for me because I didn't have to, you know, he got any backlash that there was from that. And my parents were so supportive, like shockingly supportive through the whole thing. And so yeah, that was how it went for me.